the Senate's Committee on Capital Investment to order. It's Thursday, April 28th, 2 p.m. We're one short of a quorum here, so we'll get started. We don't plan on taking any action. Oh, we now have a quorum with Senator Pappas. So the committee has a quorum. Members, today we want to talk some about, we looked at a lot of wastewater and water infrastructure while we're touring around the state, and we all know there's quite a bit of federal money coming into Minnesota for those purposes. So we asked the Executive Director of the Public Facilities Authority, Jeff Freeman, to come join us and talk to us about the need and how the federal money might dovetail with what the state has historically been doing on this subject. And then we're going to hear from the Met Council. They also received a pretty significant amount of money from the federal government. And last year there was, between Representative Lee and myself, there was a lot of conversation about the issue of I&I in the Met Council system, and kind of what is an adequate amount of money for them to be planning to mitigate some of those issues that put extra stress on their wastewater system in the metropolitan area. So let's start with Mr. Freeman. And members, there's a PowerPoint in your packet if you'd like to follow along with that. But Mr. Freeman, welcome to the Senate Committee on Capital Investment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members. For the record, my name is Jeff Freeman. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority. We are the state agency that manages water infrastructure financing programs for the state. So PFA finances all types of PFA finances all types of water infrastructure projects for cities, all types of water components, drinking water and wastewater treatment plants, sanitary sewer collection systems, water main distribution systems, water towers, wells, pump stations, all of those things. And like all infrastructure, it wears out over time and requires cities to replace, repair, rehabilitate those systems. So PFA funding can be used, and really the needs are driven by, we kind of consider it three different categories. There's replacing aging infrastructure, both pipes and treatment plants, making system improvements for better service and efficiency, and then upgrading treatment facilities to improve water quality and meet new standards and requirements. PFA low-interest loans are available, or all PFA funding programs are available to cities of all sizes throughout the state. Low-interest loans are available to all projects that are in fundable range on the annual intended use plan that we prepare. I'll talk more about that in a minute. You can see numbers there from our project activity last year, 2021. We financed 40 loans for $214 million at an average rate of 1%. Since the PFA started in 1990, we've done over 1,000 loans for $4.4 billion. We also provide targeted grants based on affordability and for treatment upgrades for specific water quality improvements. Last year, we did 27 grants for $56 million. All of the PFA programs follow project priority lists developed by the MPCA for wastewater projects, also some stormwater projects, and the Minnesota Department of Health for the drinking water systems. The PFA programs is basically our established kind of a coordinated funding network where the loan and grant funds follow a predictable, stable process so cities can plan for their capital improvements. And we work with cities to plan for those improvements, sometimes over many years. The project priority lists are really 5-year lists of projects that cities are preparing to bring to construction. We share the responsibilities for these programs with our partners at the Pollution Control Agency and the Health Department. PCA and Health, they develop the project priority lists that are based on environmental and public health criteria, also age and condition of the existing infrastructure. They do the technical, engineering, environmental project reviews, and then certify projects to us when they complete those reviews. PFA handles the financial responsibilities, which start with approving the annual intended use plans, which are the public document that lay out how we're going to manage the assets of these revolving funds for the year, and specifically which projects are in fundable range based on the available funds and the priority list that PCA and Health Department maintain. PFA staff then do the financial reviews, determine grant eligibility on each application. A lot of projects are funded with loan only, but many are eligible for one or more grant programs. I'll talk about that. We finance or we award the funds when projects are actually bid and ready to start construction, and we coordinate with other funding sources to make sure that full project funding is in place before we make any award. So a little more on the details of the program. The Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Funds are our largest programs. These are primarily low-interest loan programs, but there is also principal forgiveness grants available through the federal funding that are targeted for disadvantaged communities and certain types of green infrastructure projects. The revolving funds are supported by annual federal capitalization grants and a state match that's appropriated generally through the bonding bill. And then all of the loan repayments revolve to make new loans. We then have two major grant programs. The WIF Grants Water Infrastructure Funding Program is based on affordability criteria, and we package those grants with PFA loans, or we can also use them to match with the federal USDA rural development that also provides loans and grants with a focus on small rural communities. We also administer the Point Source Implementation Grant Program. These are grants that are specifically targeted to help cities do the water treatment upgrades that are required to improve water quality. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then finally, we have a small community wastewater treatment program, a much smaller program focused on small unsewered communities. A little more on the WIF grant program. Grants are based on affordability to help cities do projects to maintain and replace aging infrastructure that would otherwise be unaffordable. WIF grants can provide up to 80% of project costs with a $5 million maximum. And really this affordability, as we're looking at it, is really a function of economy of scale. The WIF grants tend to go to small communities because they have a much smaller user base to spread the costs over, and resulting in much higher per household costs typically than larger communities. The affordability, we look at the criteria that are set in state statute are based on the average system cost per household as a percentage of the city median household income. Statutes are set, or the thresholds are set at 1.4% for wastewater and 1.2% for drinking water. So we look at the O&M cost, the existing debt service that the community is paying for previous project improvements, and then the new project cost, all of that looking at then compared to the median income of the community. For WIF-eligible projects, average cost typically per household exceeds $50 to $60 a month before they're eligible for the WIF grants, and oftentimes cities are significantly more than that. For comparison, in the metro area, the most recent survey by the Met Council in 2020 determined that the average sewer rate for metro area households in the metro area is about $29 a month. The Pcig grant program, Point Source Implementation Grants, as I mentioned, help cities do the water treatment upgrades to improve water quality and address impaired waters. These grants cover up to 80% of eligible costs and with a $7 million maximum. Eligible projects include water treatment plant upgrades to meet more stringent permit requirements such as phosphorus, chlorides, mercury, other pollutants. For cost effectiveness, cities often will combine a treatment upgrade project with a rehab of aging facilities. So they're doing as one construction project that serves multiple purposes. And the Pcig grant is calculated based on the Pcig eligible costs related to the treatment upgrade. And then we oftentimes would provide a loan or other funding to provide the balance of the full project funding. The Pcig program has a separate application process with cities applying in July of each year. The other programs follow a different process I'll talk about in a minute. The governor's bonding recommendations recommend a total of $200 million for the PFA, and you have, I think, in your packets a breakdown of that, but in general, it breaks into three categories. State match for the federal funds of $49 million, and that includes both the required match for estimated 2023-24 federal funds, the regular capitalization grants that we expect to receive, which total about $92 million, and also for the estimated first 3 years of the federal infrastructure bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. For those first 3 years, we expect to receive about $206 million that requires a match. There's also money, about $164, that does not require a match, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. In addition, the governor recommends $76 million for the WIF grant program, split between wastewater and drinking water, and also recommends an increase in the maximum grant for that program from $5 million to $8 million as project costs are going up and to accommodate some larger projects. That's part of the governor's recommendation. Finally, the Point Source Implementation Grant Program, the governor's recommendation there is $75 million. A little more detail on the EJA IIJA federal infrastructure bill, which provides major additional funding through the state revolving fund programs for wastewater and drinking water infrastructure. It's broken down into three categories. There are supplemental funds for our existing programs, the treatment plants, the water mains, the sewer collection systems, all of that. 49% of the funds there are to be provided as principal forgiveness grants under state statutes. Those are affordability-based grants that link or are tied to the WIF affordability criteria that I just described. Also, those funds can be used for green infrastructure projects related to energy improvements and stormwater treatment generally. The federal infrastructure bill then also provides money for two new project categories. Drinking water lead service line replacement is a major issue that we've been working hard on with our partners from the health department. The funding there, 49% of that is available as the principal forgiveness grants. There's no state match required. Finally, there's a category for emerging contaminants, funding for both clean water and drinking water. 100% of that to be provided as grants with no state match. This table shows, kind of for comparison, a breakdown of the first year of the IIJA funding, 2022, which is the only year that we actually have solid numbers from EPA on right now. We have estimates for the remaining 4 years because it is a 5-year funding program. And it compares the IIJA money to the regular capitalization grants that we would expect to receive. As you can see, the new project categories there for the IIJA money and just the regular existing program categories for the regular cap grants. But in total, the IIJA money, $116.5 million, more than twice what we would normally expect to receive through the regular capitalization grants. The funding process for the IIJA money remains the same as our existing funding process. The steps are that cities first apply, submit project proposals to the Pollution Control Agency or the Health Department for ranking on their project priority list, and that's happening right now in the spring of each year. Cities then also, when they're ready to go to construction or when a project is scheduled for construction, they apply to my agency, Public Facilities Authority, to be placed on what's called the intended use plan, that public document that lays out the projects that are eligible to apply for funding. The PFA prepares that annual intended use plan describing the available funds, the requirements, and the projects that are in fundable range. We bring that to our PFA board in mid-August in draft. There's a public review and comment process, and then typically the IUP is approved in September, end of September each year. Following the IUP approval, then cities submit the actual plans and specifications for their projects to the PCA or Health Department. PFA staff do the financial review and we award the projects, award the funding when all the reviews are complete, the projects are certified, and the city goes out and takes bids and submits the as-bid costs. A little bit more on the principal forgiveness grants. This is for whatever reason, there are reasons, but I won't go into it. The feds don't like to use the word grants when it's tied to the state revolving fund loan program. So somebody came up with the term principal forgiveness. And so we'll live with that. But essentially it is a grant that reduces the amount of principal that we would otherwise be lending to the city. For the existing programs, the new funding from the IIJA infrastructure bill provides 49% of that funding is available for these principal forgiveness grants. And as I mentioned, they follow the affordability criteria for disadvantaged communities, the same as we use for the WIF program, and also for green infrastructure projects. The funding for the lead service line replacement, 49%. Right now, PFA statutes authorize the use of principal forgiveness grants for lead service line replacement. That was a change in statute in 2020. The governor's bonding recommendations, bonding bill includes some recommended language to remove the funding limits and provide flexibility now that we have this significantly more money than was previously available for lead service line replacements. And then, as I mentioned, 100% of the money for the emerging contaminant principal forgiveness grants. A little bit more about these new project categories. Lead service lines. Many cities, I'm sure everybody's heard about the dangers, the risks, the public health concern about drinking water lead service lines. And many cities across the state with older housing stock have homes with drinking water lead service lines. The health department did a report a couple of years ago with the University of Minnesota that estimated approximately 100,000 drinking water lead service lines across the state. In most cases, a portion, and this, we're talking about the pipe that connects the house to the water main in the street. And that, in most cases, the ownership of that pipe is owned partly by the homeowner, typically from the house up to what's called the curb stop, which is the valve that's buried but somewhere near the curb of the street. That's privately owned by the homeowner. From that point to the water main is typically publicly owned, but that's not in all cases, and we're finding there are some cities where it's actually privately owned all the way from the house to the water main. As I mentioned, the 2020 legislation authorized us to start funding, using drinking water state revolving fund money for lead service line replacements. We made our first award to the city of St. Paul just last summer. By statute right now, that was capped at $250,000. With the new IIJA money, we'll be able to fund significantly larger projects, and cities are planning for those larger projects. The benefit of the principal forgiveness funds, or the federal funds in general, are that privately owned portion of the service line pipe poses problems for public financing. It can't be financed by typical city tax exempt bonding or even cities using their system revenues. The user rates for those private lateral improvements is not allowed. So the federal funds do not have that same restriction. So we are able to use the federal funds on that private portion and the public portion. The entire, both public and private, has to be replaced at the same time. So we are planning to target those principal forgiveness grant funds to the privately owned portion of the pipe so that the lead service line is replaced at no cost to the property owner. That's the goal, and I believe we'll be able to do that. At the same time, then, the publicly owned portion of that project will be done as a drinking water loan through the PFA, and we're recommending that that be at 0%. That's part of the governor's bonding language. Well, I think that's enough. I'll be happy to answer more questions about that. The other new project category is the emerging contaminants. A large portion of this is really nationally and within the state, of course, focused on the PFAS, forever chemicals as they're called. The health department is also looking at manganese as a substance within many drinking water source water for drinking water systems that is a health risk, and they are currently amending their priority system rules to provide additional priority points for both PFAS and manganese. The health department is currently taking the project proposals for 2023 cities that want to take on projects for either manganese or PFAS. And based on those proposals that come in, we plan to determine how much funding is available compared to the projects that are submitted, and then there'll have to be some new statutory language to authorize principal forgiveness grants for these kinds of projects, these emerging contaminant projects. But at this point, we're going to need to get the projects lined up first so we know what's out there, and then the plan is to come back to the legislature next year with recommendations for how to use those principal forgiveness funds. On the clean water side, it's again, equally, there needs to be some time to determine how best to use those federal funds. Pollution Control Agency has just recently released a PFAS monitoring plan. There's also a Minnesota PFAS blueprint that Pollution Control Agency and other agencies put together. And those will be important documents that guide how these new federal funds should be used. So I think the plan is that PCA will be working with wastewater utilities to do monitoring, sampling, determine the amount of PFAS in wastewater discharges, try to determine the source within the cities of those chemicals, and then come back with a plan for how to use these funds to address those issues. So though that's an ongoing issue that we'll be working on over the course of the next year. I included in your packets the project priority lists that the PFA follows, clean water and drinking water. I'm not sure they copied it exactly right. There's some that were landscape and some that are portrait, and so I think you also may have the electronic versions, and certainly if there are any questions about specific projects, where they are on the priority list, what kind of funding cities might be eligible for, feel free to contact me at any time, and I'll be happy to look and we'll talk about the specifics of any of those cities. There is an alphabetical listing in the packets that you have that will help then do a cross-reference and look up where projects are on the priority list. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll stop and be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Freeman, for being here today. We truly do appreciate it. There are a couple of concerns that I have that are floating around, and that's dealing with the bill that's in front of the House of Representatives right now, Bill number 4736. In fact, if I could have a page, hand these out to the members, I would appreciate it. If there's a page that would like to hand these out. Anyhow, when I look at this bill, it brings up a lot of concerns, and so I would like to get your thoughts on it. I'm assuming that you've probably seen this bill and probably have heard something about it. Would that be a fair statement?
Mr. Chair, Senator Dames, yes, and I think there are several bills that came up in a hearing at the House a few weeks ago that I had concerns about, so I'm not sure which one this is, but.
And if the page could give you a copy of the bill, I would appreciate it. I guess my concerns is that the feedback that I'm hearing, getting from the people that have heard this or that have seen this bill and are hearing about this bill is I'm real concerned about I think we have a very successful program right now with the water infrastructure system that you're using, the grading system and things like that. And it kind of appears to me that if this Senate File 40 or House File 4736 is adopted, it's gonna kind of turn a lot of the things that we're currently doing upside down. And I certainly do not see this being a bill that's going to be very fitting to the rural area. I think it's a pretty much anti-rural, anti-small community. So that certainly has me very concerned. It looks to me like they're gonna take the WIF program and the federal revolving loan fund forgiveness program. I think that's the criteria, that's worked out pretty well, but it looks to me like a lot of that is gonna be changed. And so that certainly is a concern. It also looks like the grants that providing funding for water and wastewater system and state, that they've been very affordable and helped a lot of our small communities with these infrastructure problems. But with some of the changes that this bill is requesting or calling for, that's certainly gonna have a bearing on that, especially when this bill would remove the caps on both the WIF and the Pcig program. I guess my real concern is that the rumor is that this may be put in their bonding bill. And so I think that if that is put in their bonding bill, it's gonna turn things upside down quite a bit compared to what we know it today. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it and how you feel this would fit into our current program and what effects you felt it would have with our current program. I don't know just where you're at, but if you could kind of give us some idea of your thoughts on this, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, Senator Deems, I do share your concerns about this bill. The WIF program, I believe, is working very well for the purpose that it was intended, which is to help cities build replace the aging infrastructure and build those projects that would otherwise be unaffordable. And I think the program has been very successful at doing that. I think some of these proposed changes may be driven by specifically the concerns about how the lead service line funding will be used and targeted. And that certainly does bring up a new aspect of things that we haven't funded before. And it's certainly appropriate. In fact, the EPA guidance does encourage states to look at what are we currently using for affordability criteria and disadvantaged community criteria, and how might that change because of the lead service line issue in particular, or other issues as well. And we are looking at that right now. We believe that on the lead service line issue, it really becomes that private ownership and the potential of some of the costs of replacing a lead service line being assessed back to the property owner, which is going to be obviously a significant hardship for many property owners. And we want to be able to use these federal principal forgiveness grants to avoid that problem. And so we believe the current affordability criteria that we have can be adapted to look at what would be the cost to the individual property if they had to absorb a special assessment for that lead service line. We're also looking at project areas more as in terms of census tracts within a city for prioritization and targeting of these funds. Because prior to lead service lines, the projects that we're working with, typically they benefit the entire user base of the city, and the costs are spread out among the entire user base. Lead service lines are different, and they're very much attached to that individual property. And to this point, most of the work that's been done to replace lead service lines, to the extent it has been done, it's been done through an assessment back to the property. That won't work if the goal, and the goal is to remove all of the lead pipes. And we definitely support that goal. We want to use these funds to achieve that goal. So we will be through our intended use plan, proposing how we can use existing criteria to address those projects. And we think that it will make sense and it will allow us to achieve that goal of accomplishing this work without an assessment, without a cost to the homeowner, to the property owner. So I think that is part of why maybe these changes were proposed, but they would have a real detrimental impact on the WIF program in general. I share your concerns with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Freeman, these two new programs, the emerging contaminants, are there any caps on, I mean, those are 100% forgiveness grants. Are there any caps on what people can get on that, on those programs?
Mr. Chair, that will be up to the state to determine, and that's what I mentioned. The health department's currently working with cities to determine these projects and how big they are, and that will then help us make recommendations to you and to the legislature about what should be the caps. How can we structure this so we can spread this money out and fund as many projects as possible?
Thank you. Other questions, members? Anything else for you? Oh, Mr. Freeman, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll be visiting more in the next 3 weeks, I think. So, members, now, we're going to hear from the Met Council about what's going on with planning over there relative to water-type projects. Mr. Colvin, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Colvin. I'm the manager of the Wastewater Planning and Community Programs Group in the Environmental Services Division of the Metropolitan Council. I was asked today to provide a brief overview of the council's I&I program. And I'll start off first with describing the regional system that provides service to the Summit County metropolitan area, and then give a brief overview of the council's program. As I stated, the Metropolitan Council provides regional wastewater service to the Summit County metropolitan area. It includes providing service to 111 communities in the Summit County area, and that represents a little over 2.8 million residents within that service area. And that's pretty impressive when you consider that's almost half of the state's entire population. Our facilities includes 9 wastewater treatment plants, 637 miles of interceptors, and we treat 250 million gallons of wastewater per day. We employ a little over 600 employees, and our current assets are valued, present worth value, $7 billion. It's important to note that that's not a replacement cost. That's just simply what the current value of those assets are. And our annual capital improvement program is $150 million. As most of you know, the regional wastewater collection system really comprises of 3 parts. There's the private system, which provides service to each individual building on a piece of property that conveys flow from the building out primarily and typically out to the street, where it connects to the local municipal system. Local municipal system then collects that flow from the individual properties, and here in the metropolitan area, it conveys that flow in most cases to a Metropolitan Council regional interceptor, which then transports that flow to one of our 9 wastewater treatment plants. 8 of those 9 plants treats the wastewater, and then discharges that water to either the Mississippi River, Minnesota River, St. Croix, or Crow River. Our ninth plant, located in East Bethel, actually treats its wastewater at a little higher standard and then discharges that treated water through land application basins where it infiltrates into the ground and then replenishes the shallow aquifer or groundwater table. The council owns and operates an extensive system of sanitary flow meters. These facilities measures the wastewater within key strategic points in the regional system. It takes a measurement anywhere from every 3 to 5 minutes and then collects that information and allows us to, one, bill communities for its wastewater discharge. And then it also allows us to monitor peak flows that are generated within communities that then allows us to implement the council's I&I program. Through that network, we have identified that 81 of the 111 communities that we provide service to are impacted by excessive amounts of inflow and infiltration. That's clear water that enters into the wastewater collection system. And of course, once it enters the wastewater collection system, then it has to be treated along with the wastewater. The primary goal of the council's I&I program is to keep clear water out of the collection system and to retain, which retains or recaptures system capacity by providing capacity within the collection system. We avoid backups of sewers into basements, thereby protecting public health. By keeping the wastewater within these collection systems, we avoid spilling wastewater into nearby receiving waters, lakes and rivers. And then also by ensuring that we have adequate capacity in the collection system, we are maximizing those initial investments that we made when we initially built those facilities. So we're maintaining the economic efficiency in utilizing those original investments. The council's I&I program actually has its beginnings dating back 35 years ago as a result of the superstorm that occurred in June and July of 1987. As a result of almost 1.5 feet of rainfall over a 1-week period, excess I&I in the system resulted in a system failure in the city of Minneapolis. And for a period of a week, raw wastewater entered the Minnesota River. As a result of that spill, the council and the Environmental Protection Agency entered into negotiations. And at that time, the council committed to doing and implementing an I&I study and a follow-up program. Those negotiations and agreement allowed us to not enter into a consent agreement with the EPA. Then in 1990 and 2002, the council conducted a couple of studies in which identified approaches that the region should take in mitigating excess I&I entering the system, and also determined that it was much more cost-effective to address I&I at its source versus increasing system capacity to accommodate it. Then through 2004 through 2016, the council convened 3 community-based I&I task force. Those task force confirmed the approach of mitigating at the source versus building additional capacity in the regional system. Recommended that an ongoing program be implemented by the council to address the excess I&I into the system and identify tools dedicated, develop tools for communities to use to help them address I&I mitigation projects. And then also suggested that the council pursue dedicated and reliable funding sources for communities to incentivize continued work in local I&I mitigation work. Between 2004 and 2020, local communities have invested over $175 million in the public collection system. A portion of this work by local communities has been funded by past I&I grant bonds. I'll go into that a little bit later. Also during roughly that same time period, the Metropolitan Council has invested over $1 million in the regional collection system for I&I mitigation efforts. As I stated just a minute ago, between 2010 and 2020, there has been $24.2 million of public infrastructure grants through I&I bond grant programs, and these were implemented through 7 individual grant programs. And then the council received a one-time grant fund of $1 million out of the Clean Water Legacy Fund that was used for private property I&I mitigation efforts. In terms of results, what we've seen to date is a steady decline in the average daily wastewater being generated within our service district. This can be attributed to a combination of the efforts in I&I mitigation and also water conservation. The decline has more than offset the additional flow to the regional wastewater system that has been generated by growth. Growth within the 7-county area has historically averaged about 1% per year. The reduction in flow equates to a savings in operational costs of about $35 million per year, and this keeps our rates to our customers low. The council invests about $150 million per year in the regional wastewater system to address asset renewal, including I&I mitigation, to expand our system to accommodate growth, and to improve the safety and efficiency of our system. However, through the benefits and results of the I&I mitigation, we have been able to avoid having to build capacity improvements to accommodate wet weather events or excess I&I. This has resulted in affordable rates to the communities that we serve. In comparison to our national peers, our rates are approximately 35% lower than the national average. The governor's proposed bonding bill includes $5 million for public infrastructure I&I mitigation grants that will support continued efforts by communities to address excess I&I in the local public collection system. These efforts will continue to retain and recapture system capacity and allow the deferment of system capacity projects, thereby saving users money by keeping local and regional rates low. And I believe also in your packet, there is information that summarizes the 7 bonding grant programs that the council has administered. I can answer any questions regarding that. One key note, I think the last time that handout was updated was in 2018. Did not include some of the information related to the 2020 grant program related to the leveraging of grant monies versus local expenditures. And I can say that the $5 million grant, I&I grant, bond grant that was offered in 2020 resulted in a leverage of about $3.4 of local work versus for each dollar of the grant. With that, I can answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Well, Mr. Cole, I'm just curious, so if the legislature followed through with the $5 million that the governor proposed, how are those projects selected? Obviously, there's a big backlog of things, but how would you what's your capacity to do, and how would you prioritize projects across the 7 counties.
Sure, Mr. Chair and committee members. We send out a request for applications once we have any specific guidelines regarding the grant funds. There's communities will then submit projects that focus on I&I mitigation work. The council then uses a two-step allocation process whereby we, looking at the distribution of the requests, we will allocate a minimum award. And for instance, I think in the 2020 grant, we made the first pass-through that $50,000. So a community, there's a matching dollar requirement from the local community. So if a community had a $25,000 project, let's say a $50,000 project, then we would allocate, the first pass would be $25,000. So that guarantees that every applicant at least receives the minimum first pass of the allocation. Then we take the remaining funds after that first allocation, and then we proportion the balance of the reward based on the project versus the total remaining funds. So for instance, if there's 20 applicants, we would run through the initial allocation of, let's say, $25,000. And if there's $4.5 million left, then that $4.5 million then gets reallocated to the remaining applicants that still have capacity in terms of receiving a grant based on their project cost versus the total project request. So for instance, on the second pass, if a community if their work represented 20% of the total request, then they would get 20% of whatever the remaining balance is of that second pass. So there is a review of the eligible costs. We confirm that the projects are indeed focused on some type of I&I mitigation. So that's a repair of the sewer, lining, joint sealing. If there's a cracked manhole lid, vented lids, if there's anything, site grading, if an area is subject to flooding, the grants can be applied for regrading purposes to divert flood waters away from the collection system. So there is a review for applicability for the project in terms of its ability to mitigate or remove excess I&I coming into the system. And then we go through the two-pass allocation process.
So when you get through and all the money is appropriated, is there a cap of 50% of the cost of a project, or can some community get more than 50%?
The pass bond requirements did require a share, a cost share, a 50% share, matching dollar.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just curious, how many times do these applications come in, then the work is done in conjunction with some street repairs or curb and gutter or water line repairs when the street's already tore up, and how often are they just maybe relining a pipe or some more isolated manhole work, or what, I mean, is there any kind of a breakdown of what the projects entail?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, yes, the projects can represent multiple improvements to different systems. So for instance, a project might come in, it may include street repaving, curb and gutter replacement, water main repairs, storm sewer repairs, landscaping in some cases. And so what we will do is, or the applicant will do many times, is they will break out those elements of the project that are specific to I&I mitigation. So for instance, a sanitary sewer, if it's being relined, they will take that cost out of the bid tab, and that would be reflective of what their ask is for the grant monies. And then we take a look at that to confirm that those costs truly are related to some kind of I&I abatement.
Okay, thank you. Senator Jazinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in part of your PowerPoint, it was said that the metro rates, the average were 35% lower or than average. And again, so I'm from rural Minnesota, and our rates seem to be awfully high. So what are the rates? What's the average rate in the 7-county metro or in the Metropolitan Council as far as just a sewer rate?
Sewer rate, the retail sewer rate, the council's a wholesale provider, we build communities.
So I'm asking for retail.
Yep, so the retail rate, just look that up. We do a survey every 2 years. This is based on a survey that was conducted in 2020. I know I sent that to Susie. I believe the annual retail wastewater rate, I believe, is $270 per year, per annum, I believe.
Wow, it's awfully low. Some of our cities we're seeing in rural Minnesota, they're paying 2 to 3 to maybe 4 times that, those rates. So something to keep in mind for our committee when we're going through, because there's a lot of requests in greater Minnesota, and the rates out there, and probably the average income, household income is much lower, and they're paying 3 to 4 times the amount that they're paying in the metro. So something we, I think, should think about when we're thinking projects coming up, because we've seen a lot of projects that, with the proposed requirements the MPCA is requiring on these wastewater treatment plants, they're looking at tripling their costs, and they're probably already triple already compared to what the metro rates are. So I hope we can all remember that when we're looking at a bonding bill. Thank you.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually don't recall seeing any metro requests to us. I mean, it's just this $5 million for I&I that has been a request. So we have not been seeing big requests. Oh, that's me. I screwed that up. I did it. I fixed it. I did have another question about this. Is some of the cost for sewer, and we didn't talk about the water cost, we get charged separately for water from the Met Council? Maybe you could tell us that. And is some of our property taxes that goes to support the Met Council also used to subsidize some of the wastewater, clean water treatment work that the Met Council does?
Yes, Mr. Chair and committee member. The wastewater system in our service is a user fee-based system. We do not get any property tax levies or outside funding sources to operate or maintain the facility. Our user fees pays for the operational expenses. We do get some revenue from industrial strength charges that we do collect directly from industries. There's also a connection charge that we charge users who either connect to the system for the first time or expand on the existing use. These are service availability charges, or SAC charges, if you're familiar with the metro area. That's another revenue stream, but again, it's a user fee based. And then in terms of our capital program, as Mr. Freeman pointed out, we get PFA loans through them, usually about $50 million per year to fund a lot of rehabilitation projects. And then we also receive funding through general obligation bonds, or GO bonds. And then we also, a small portion of our user fees, our treatment cost revenue from communities does go to a very small portion of our capital program. But those essentially are the total revenue sources that allow us to operate the system.
Thank you.
I think I answered all your questions.
So Mr. Colvin, what was the council's request to the governor for an I&I bonding dollars?
We supported the $5 million request. I don't know specifically what the request was. We usually follow the lead of the governor and support whatever gets proposed. I know Metro Cities also does advocate some financial funding as well. On behalf of the council.
Maybe you could get that for us, so we know what
Yes. Yes.
I wouldn't want to see the House's request in their spreadsheet to be more than the council actually requested of the governor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Also, there was one other question from the committee member too regarding water.
Sure, go ahead.
The council provides regional wastewater service. It's the local communities that actually provides water supply to its residents. So we're not involved in any kind of service provision. We do serve a planning function in terms of water supply, but we're not a provider of water supply. Just a clarification. Thank you.
Anything else, members? Senator Dornick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Colvin, I had a question about the intrusion of water, I think you said, into the pipes. How widespread is that, and how can you, is there a way you can, that you know that it's happening?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and committee member, there are ways to identify and quantify. I think if you look on the handout, there's a cloud map on there, and you can see that a large portion of the communities that receive grant monies are also indicative of some of the older parts of the older communities, and therefore some of the oldest part of the collection system. So, you know, that primarily is kind of where the from regionally and geographically speaking, that's where the biggest problem really appears to be focused on. That's not to say that some of the outlying communities that are older in nature aren't challenged with excess flows, but primarily speaking, as a whole, it's those older core communities with the older systems that, you know, that are challenged the greatest. And there are ways to actually quantify that from a community-wide basis, and that would be through those wastewater flow meters that I described a little bit earlier. We can actually measure what's being generated within a community, and then by tracing that and comparing it against specific storm events, we can actually see the response and quantify what's coming into the system.
Thank you. Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Senator Dornick.
So I know in Austin Elberly, it's the high phosphorus rates that are really driving the cost up for the new wastewater treatment plants. Is the rates the same for you at Met Council? How does that work with their limits and more in rural Minnesota?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and committee member, I can't speak to what the rates or challenges are regarding phosphorus with rural Minnesota, but I can say that in terms of the permit requirements and treatment requirements, the council does take a regional approach to its rate structure. So the cost per million gallons of wastewater is the same for Minneapolis as it is for East Bethel or Lakeville. So there's a unified rate. Treatment phosphorus is a regulated element in our permit process, and we continue to enhance our treatment standards in order to meet those regulatory requirements. We do have extremely high compliance records, some of the highest in the country in terms of our discharge quality. But phosphorus is one of the primary things that we're regulated on and that we have to stay on top of to make sure that we're maintaining our compliance. I don't know if that answered your question.
Mr. Chair, follow up?
Senator Dornick.
Just, so is it the same? That's all my question really was, are they uniform, I guess, from your standards to the standards out in greater Minnesota?
Oh, now I get it. Mr. Chair, committee member. Yeah, the standards for wastewater treatments are established based on the receiving water in which the water is being discharged into. So for instance, it's primarily governed by the quality of the receiving water. So treatment plants located on the Mississippi River, for instance, will have one standard for whatever the constituent is that you're being regulated against. Whereas some of the smaller streams, pristine streams, might have a little higher standard. And it's all based on the quality of the water that the treated wastewater resultant of the effluent is being discharged into. So they are different depending on the receiving waters.
So you have multiple point discharges. How many again?
We have, yeah, Mr. Chair, we have 9 wastewater treatment plants. And the receiving waters are the Mississippi, Minnesota, St. Croix, and the Crow River. And of course, then up in East Bethel, we infiltrate through the ground. And they all, each plant that discharges to each one of those rivers has its own standard.
Good. Senator Jazinski? Anybody else? Senator Sanger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You might have referenced this, but just generally speaking, how often do we use liners instead of dig, replace pipe and bury? In my mind, liners would be, certainly a lot, obviously less intrusive and cheaper in the long run. I don't know if do we use liners a lot?
Mr. Chair and committee member, yeah, I would say that lining a pipe is the primary method of rehabilitating a pipe and addressing infiltration that might be coming in through pipe joints. It's cheaper, it's less disruptive, and as long as there isn't a future capacity need that may require a larger pipe, slip lining or lining a pipe is by and far the most common method of rehabilitating a facility.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Cullen, thank you. Thanks for coming in. And then if you can get us the number of
Yes.
what the council's request of the governor was for I&I, that would be helpful.
Certainly do that. Thank you.
Members, anything else? I believe we're going back to the floor later today at some point, so. We're gonna meet again next week. What I don't know is we've still got several omnibus bills to get off the floor. Senator Newman's been dragging his feet with his bill. Senator Kiffmeyer has been, and Senator Chamberlain has been, so we got some work left, but we will meet next week. Just don't know the exact date and time. You'll have to see, you'll have to find out from leadership what they think the flow of things are gonna be.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a topic?
Well, I'm gonna talk with, Senator Pappas was in a meeting this morning with me in finance and then we had MMB in to talk about the federal money and kind of what we know. And we didn't find out as much as we would hoped, I guess, but, I think we'll probably talk some about that. I want to talk with Senator Newman about transportation. I mean, some of the projects out there dovetail between trunk highway bonds and GO bonds. So we'll have a conversation to see if we need to put transportation on the agenda. But we're gonna stay away from local projects, because I just don't know where you start and stop when you've got like 400 or 500 bills in our committee, so pretty hard. Okay, with that, members, we'll adjourn to the call of the chair.